go to the USA now, and the murder of 8 people at 3 different spas in Atlanta has raised the spectre that the motive for the killings could have been racial hatred. 6 of the deceased were Asian Americans. Now, anti-Asian hate crimes in the USA have increased sharply since the start of COVID-19. Of course, that pandemic began in Wuhan, China. Let's discuss this and other stories in the USA with our Washington correspondent, Simon Marks. Hi there, Simon. Great to chat to you. So, 21-year-old Robert Long has now been arrested for these killings. 8 people killed at 3 different spas. There were some suggestions that he targeted these aromatherapy spas because he saw them as dens of iniquity and temptation. So how much emphasis is the investigation putting on the possibility that there was a sort of a racially motivated hate crime at play here?
Well, police and investigators in Atlanta are under enormous pressure, Sally, from Asian American community leaders to declare this a hate crime. And they're so far not proving willing to do so because the 21-year-old suspect, who has confessed to these attacks, says that his driving motivation was a sex addiction and that he appears to have had some kind of an association with these spas prior to Tuesday night's deadly assault on them. Asian community leaders say it cannot possibly be coincidental that 6 of the 8 victims were Asian Americans, that whatever the suspect says, the police and investigators ought to be able to make their own determination as to whether hatred in some fashion was driving these attacks. And these are not in isolation. They come after a year of growing violent attacks against Asian Americans, sparked in large measure by antipathy towards them that was stoked by former President Donald Trump, who always referred to COVID-19 as the China virus, Kung flu. He used a variety of racially divisive terms to describe the coronavirus. We've heard just within the last few minutes a White House statement saying that President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are going to travel to Atlanta tomorrow. They were planning to attend a political event there. They've postponed that. Instead, they say they will meet with Asian American leaders to discuss the ongoing attacks and threats against the community. There is a congressional hearing taking place today anyway about violence against members of the Asian American community, and whether this is officially ultimately deemed to have been a hate crime or not, certainly community leaders absolutely are viewing it through that prism.
All right, let's move on to the United States international relations, and first of all a focus on Russia. And this is this war of words between Presidents Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin, calling each other killers. I understand that it all started because a journalist asked Joe Biden, do you think Vladimir Putin is a killer? And he said yes. Just give us the backstory to this.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, when Joe Biden was asked by George Stephanopoulos of ABC, do you think Vladimir Putin is a killer, his response was, yes. He didn't say he's a killer. He didn't use the word, but Vladimir Putin has absolutely used that word today to describe Joe Biden, saying it's President Biden who's a killer, and with his voice dripping with sarcasm, the Russian president, who's withdrawn his ambassador to the United States for consultations over this, has sent a message wishing Joe Biden good health in the months ahead. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the White House interprets that, because we've heard Vladimir Putin in the past wishing good health to his political opponents, including Alexei Navalny, who of course nearly died as a result of nerve agent poisoning that the Europeans say was absolutely orchestrated by the Kremlin. This is going to take the US-Russian relationship to a new low point. We believe that fresh US sanctions are coming next week against Russia after a newly declassified intelligence report here earlier this week said that Vladimir Putin had personally authorized interference in the 2020 election and a campaign to denigrate Joe Biden in a bid to try and secure 4 more years for former President Donald Trump. That, of course, an extension of what Donald Trump insists is the great Russia hoax, the greatest political witch hunt of all time. He says, even though there is copious evidence to support the view that the Russians were backing Donald Trump in his bid for re-election.
And moving on to the USA's relationship with China, I understand their face-to-face meetings today. Tell us more about that, the significance thereof.
Yeah, in many ways, for all of us, wherever we live around the world, this might be the biggest event of the day. Officials from President Biden's inner circle, his Secretary of State and his National Security Advisor in Anchorage, Alaska, for these first face-to-face meetings that the Biden administration is holding with top Chinese officials. It comes at the end of a week in which the Secretary of State has been in Asia, visiting the Japanese and the South Koreans, accusing the Chinese of coercive and aggressive behaviour in Hong Kong towards Taiwan. Of course, genocide that the United States is taking place against the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang province. So it is freezing cold in Anchorage, Alaska, minus 15 degrees Celsius, but the temperature outside may be slightly warmer than the temperature inside the room as the conversation gets underway. Very tense conversations ahead, but a first opportunity for the Biden administration at least to establish contact with senior figures from President Xi Jinping's government, and some are holding out the possibility of a face-to-face meeting between the two presidents later this year. Let's see how this first conversation goes.
Thank you so much, Simon Marks, our Washington correspondent there.